Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Unemployed Millennial podcast. I am your host, Anne Marie, and it is currently 2:21 in the morning on December 19th. I am getting ready I'm currently pulling an all-nighter, and I'm going to leave to the airport in a few hours at like 5. I think I'm gonna keep where I'm going a secret just to create some suspense so that you'll have to come back next week and figure out where I am. This is actually the only social platform that I'm actually kind of updating in real time right now. So if you care, you need to come back. I also might reveal it just on accident throughout the episode, so we'll see. But my flight is at 7 a.m. I went to the Austin airport for before Thanksgiving, and quite before, like a lot before Thanksgiving. Like I gave myself plenty of time, and I swear I would have missed my flight. It was so busy, so incredibly busy. I would have missed my flight had I not had Clear. And this is a joke because I just accidentally kept paying for the subscription for Clear. I think somehow it honestly has saved me like a few times. But at different airports, there's like Clear with TSA pre-check, and I've never had TSA pre-check. So I went in that line because I saw that it said TSA pre-check and Clear, and I was like, where is just the Clear line? And the lady was just like, oh, just come in here. I get closer in the line. I'm looking at the time. I'm like, I'm maybe going to miss this flight. There are hundreds of people in line in front of me, it seems. I don't know. There's just a ton of people. It's chaos. And I'm like debating if I'm gonna have to ask people if I can cut them, and I just like I'm like, I don't think I have that type of energy right now. So I'm really about to, I don't know, I've been in very stressful airport situations, and it really doesn't help to stress out. So the one other time that I felt this way, I actually did end up asking like a bunch of people to cut them with another guy, and we cut we didn't cut them because they let us, but we, with permission, cut at least like 50 people. And then we got to the very front, and then this woman was like, no, I'm also waiting for my flight, which is understandable. Just get to the airport early. So that's what I'm going to do this time. But I am not even kidding. Okay, so we get further into the line. It's just chaos everywhere. And I actually feel really bad for airport staff because I could never do it. My overstimulation, it was just, I can't even really go to Costco because it's just so many people, and I really genuinely feel bad. I try to be really nice to the TSA, but then sometimes they're just like useless also. So I am in line, and I had already asked TSA pre-check Clear. I only have Clear. And then I hear someone else being like, everyone in this line has to have TSA pre-check and Clear. And I'm just like, what? This lady just told me that it's for both. So then this lady takes me out of the line. No one checks anything. No one scans my fingerprint. No one looks at my eyes. She takes me to the very front. She cuts, because that's how they kind of do it. I don't really understand how Clear does it, but you just kind of go to the very front of the line. Mind you, I'm not kidding. No one has checked a single ID, anything on my body. And at least at the Austin airport, they have like this thing that takes a picture of you, but I just fully cut the entire line, and no one has asked me anything or verified anything. And it's a charade. That's all I can say. It was just fake, make pretend play. And I was just like, actually, what is the point of this? I asked the woman in front of me. It was kind of cool because there were drug sniffing dogs at the airport, so you had to like walk in lines of 2, and so I basically just like cut straight to the dogs, and then I was like, this is kind of cool, and then I just walked a little faster than the guy that was going with me so that I could get in front of him, and I was totally fine. I made my flight. But I was so lucky, in my opinion, that Clear just booped me out of line, put me straight to the front. But it was just one big fat joke. Like, I'm just like, I got so lucky, like the perfect timing. I had a great conversation with my Uber driver, but it was just a joke. So this time I'm not gonna take that for granted. I'm gonna go to the airport really early. or at least just not like super last minute like I tend to. And we are pulling an all-nighter. And I don't know. I took like a 40-minute nap at like 7, and I feel pretty good right now. And Andrew Huberman talks about how I, for some reason, saw a tweet. Like, I remember I used to do this like almost every Vlogmas. Some people just can't pull all-nighters. I don't mind them, and sometimes as like a creative, sometimes 2 and 5, the hour between the early wee morning. And I even remember in high school doing this, I would always pull all-nighters. There's just something about these hours that are so special. And I don't know, time goes like slower, and you're like, I can actually have my phone out, like no one's texting me. And that's what we're doing today. So if this is like a little interesting, it's because it's 2:27 in the morning. So today's topic is kind of fun. I think it's kind of funny because, all right, so in Alaska, there are a lot of vanity license plates. And I think that's like the proper term. At least I'm pretty sure that's what I hear. And basically that just means like, you know, you can customize your license plate. For some reason, I feel like Alaskans do this more than like any other state that I've seen. I feel like it appears, I'm not going to make a statistic because I really don't know, but I'll just be walking around. I love walking, and you just see so many different creative license plates in Alaska. And I had the idea one time to just start recording them because I don't know. And I had the idea to do like some type of John Wilson inspired thing where I actually just write out and I look at all the license plates and then write an actual something to a video, because I'm trying to write in my videos more. I have my theory of capturing, creating, and curating, which I've talked about a few times, but I only ever really capture. So like right now I'm capturing a full podcast with minimal edits, if any. I'm going to try to do no edits this time, but my next era on YouTube, my next chapter is going to be creating. So like a movie, you write the script, you write the outline, whatever, the screenplay, and then you take that from your brain, put it onto paper, and then fill in the gaps. And then curating is like a podcast. Like all of the guests that I choose to have on my podcast, I'm curating a very particular group of people. And I've had some weird experiences with previous guests that are not even on the channel, so you can't even reference back. But I think curation is like only becoming more and more important, and also discernment for other people to be on like other podcasts, because now everyone and their mom has a podcast, and I don't think people think that deeply, and maybe you don't need to, but I think it's important to like curate and actually think about what you're putting together, and also to discern and be like, do I want to be a part of this person's brand and what they stand for? So I don't really know how I got on that tangent, but basically the video that I'm editing right now, I'm going to try to follow the tangent because it's coming back. I found it. It's coming back. So license plates, I was capturing a bunch of them over the summer. And then I'm currently working on a video that I filmed like from New York this past summer. And I just really, similar to my last video, it just like the energy died down, but it's come back. So I'm working on 2 final videos before I feel like I can just like really move on. And the reason why I'm saying it like that, because I feel like these videos they're just so representative of huge learnings, like huge life learnings that I actually had. And it's really cool when you can actually capture life and then try to convey a message or something that you learned. And the weird thing is like there's just a ton of symbolism, a lot of like real life symbolism and metaphor, and just things that I think are solidified in my brain, and that doesn't happen that often. So I'm really excited about these videos, or just like excited to process it and be done with it. So I'm still working on these videos, but it's from the same time period where I'm just like, I started recording all these license plates. And so I've been looking out for them a lot. Like I kind of everywhere I go now where I'm walking, like I'll just like glance at license plates. And if they say something, I'll always try to read it. And if it says something that I think is funny or relevant, I'll take a video of it for just like 10 seconds and then add it to my little collection of license plates. So the very last time that I was in New York, this time I was just like, I knew it was going to be my last time being there for like a little while, because this whole year I've just been planning my return like as soon as I kind of leave New York. But my next two videos are kind of just like me saying goodbye, or me realizing that I don't really need to be in New York anymore. It's kind of like the end of that chapter for me, and kind of like realizing that and coming to that conclusion. But I was walking around New York and I just saw this license plate that said, "You are lost." And I was talking to Simon about this. I don't know how it came up, but I remember seeing this license plate and I was just like, I was going to capture it, but then I was like, I don't want to capture that. And I felt like a little bit offended, which makes absolutely no sense. And it's kind of funny, but it just triggered something in my brain to the point where I don't even think I captured it on video, but I really should have. But I kind of wanted to talk about this as a subject because I feel like it was funny that I still remember it and like got slightly offended from a license plate, which is really stupid to admit out loud. But when I was telling Simon, it was kind of funny. And I feel like I've had like a lot of learnings and thoughts even on just like the idea of being lost. So that's kind of what I want to cover in this general podcast. These podcasts this is like, seriously, my podcast is kind of like my favorite thing that I'm doing right now. I'm trying to make them a little bit more directed, because I look at other podcasts and they usually have like a topic, where a lot of the time I kind of just want to come on here and just like have and say all of my updates. But I also think that, a lot of like a big theme of my life recently has been like structure and discipline. And I think that can also carry on to like the structure and discipline of this podcast. So maybe we'll do general themes, but this is kind of like the statement: you are lost. I was going to make it like, am I lost? ? Or I am lost. But I genuinely don't really feel that way. Even though maybe to the outer world it might seem that way, but I do have a lot of thoughts on this. So it's interesting also because I feel like a lot of things keep going back to the videos that I'm currently working on, just like very recurring themes and like symbolisms. But this one is related because if you watched my Synchronicity video, you will know that I came upon this book called The Power of One More by Ed Milet from this YouTuber called Attract Passion, who recommended me a book to read, and it was The Power of One More. And I'd never heard of Ed Milet before. I had never seen like any of his content. He's a podcaster. I'd never listened to his podcast. And then I went to my friend Nick's apartment in New York to record a podcast that I didn't end up releasing, just because the footage is like, we filmed it on our iPhones, and I just can't find like one of the angles. And she just launched her jewelry line, and at the time she was like working on it, like about to launch it. And I just basically want to redo it. I'm kind of being perfectionistic, but I also think that we could have done like a much better job, and also me in preparation. And I don't think it did her justice. So, but I talk about how like I go to her place to do a podcast, and like when I get there, I just like see this pile of books, and they're all just like, stacked this way, vertical, upright on her windowsill, except for a single book laying on top of all of them. And I'm not even kidding. I had done the FaceTime or the Zoom earlier with this guy, Attract Passion. I forget his name. I was watching him like very consistently in the summer, but I kind of stopped watching him for now. I'll like visit his videos every now and then. But The book that he recommended that I had never heard of at the time was just laying on top of all of the other books. And I was just like, no way. Because I told her about my synchronicity video, just like a ton of synchronicity. And it ended up being Elliot's book. And he texted me after he watched it. He was like, that's where my book went. But she was like, feel free to take it. So I did, and I read it, and I thought that there were some really interesting concepts in it, but I also started listening to some of his podcasts, or like he has a YouTube channel, and I actually really, really like his stuff. Like I genuinely will tune in probably like once a week or like once every 2 weeks when he just has like an interesting title. And I think like he has really solid advice. And I guess to preface this, I feel I had been thinking about this idea because I wanted to do themes for my podcast. And I was like, I think I want to do something on like you are lost or feeling lost. Because I also kind of feel like a lot of people feel that way right now. And it's interesting because he has this thing. I think the topic for him was on self-sabotage. And this year has been really interesting for me because I feel like it's been an extremely stagnant year. And that wasn't obviously how I expected the year to go going into it. Like 2023, I was like, this is going to be my year. I learned so much. Like, I'm ready to like take off, whatever. And I really do think like I learned some very necessary life lessons and went through the experiences that I needed to go through and like whatever. But it was also just like a lot of kind of me feeling like a little stuck and stagnant. And I made this video called I Poop My Pants in NYC, where I felt like I was like, you know, kind of just like in a vortex. And that's kind of like how I felt, just like repeating the same, sometimes like the exact same day every day, or like the same cycles or the same habits, and like just kind of stuck in this little thing. And it really made me think, because Ed Milet was talking about how you can often self-sabotage. Like even when you gain like some success, then you self-sabotage because you want to bring yourself back to a place that's like familiar and comfortable. And I honestly think that that is like a huge subconscious thing that I have been doing to myself for probably several years. But I think I really noticed it this year just from the cyclical vortex and the continuous, like me just finding myself in the same spot. And it's super weird because sometimes it's especially evident in Alaska for me. And it's weird because I'm like in a completely different place and have had completely different experiences and have met so many different people in the last like 2 years than probably like the last few years, or like maybe more so in the last like 2 years than like my entire 20s. Like even when I was in college, like I feel like I keep in contact with like probably like 5 people from college. I didn't meet like that many people or make that many friends. I feel like that has just progressed as time has gone on. I've just kept meeting more and more people, and people that I actually like. Because in college, it was really hard for me to find people that I actually really connected with. It was like finding a needle in the haystack. It was like you find one person per 3 years, and that's it. One person that you actually genuinely like, and like really want to invest in their friendship with. So this is where the 2:40 a.m. is gonna lose me. So yeah, lots of stagnancy in this year. And the interesting thing about being stagnant and being in these cycles is that you know what's gonna happen and you can actually control it because you're doing the same thing. And I think that is like a form of self-sabotage. It's like, you know, you step outside, and Ed Milet has this like interesting metaphor. I need to like actually freaking learn the literary terms so I can use these properly, because I always talk about them. Symbolism. Basically, he talks about like a temperature gauge or a thermometer. And you're at 75 and you're trying to push to 100 degrees. And the way to do that is to like get around people who are at 100 degrees and to push yourself there. But sometimes if you push yourself all the way there, you realize that that's out of your comfort zone. So you self-sabotage and bring yourself back down to your baseline temperature because that's just like what you know. And I really resonated with this because I think a lot of my actions this year have just been for me to stay in like this safe comfort zone that I know very well because I've been there again and again and again. Like I've been here plenty of times before. And so I don't need to like worry about stepping outside of it because this is like a self-contained safe space versus if you step outside of it, you might not know where you're going. You might even get yourself lost, but you might actually find yourself like on a path that is actually meant for you. So I guess like my whole idea of this and my whole like thought process is sometimes you literally have to be lost in life in order to get to the next level or in order to like ascend from like a certain cycle that you're in. And that's definitely been the case, I think, for me. And it's interesting because I'm editing this video and at the time it was summertime and I was reading my journal from the prior year. And I think that's why I don't know. I just am a huge advocate for journaling. The method that I follow, morning pages, you're not actually supposed to read them again. But sometimes you just find straight up wisdom from yourself or just like lessons or cycles that you're going through. And you can recognize that you're still going through the same thing. I feel like this is going to be the case with podcasting. Like I'll probably talk about something that I'm going through and then realize that I keep talking about it and just you kind of get sick of yourself. You're just like, okay, I've done this already. I know I have the tools to like move on from this. But I was reading my journal and a part of the reason why these videos are so important to me is because the year prior, like I just left the content house that I was in, your mom's house, and I was going through my journals and it was kind of sad because it's like, I just felt like I didn't have the strength to go back to New York. And I remember Elliot and Nick came to visit me in Alaska around before the 4th of July of last year. And Elliot was just trying to push me and like encourage me. And he was just like, you need to come back to New York as soon as possible because, you know, the world's going to move on whether you're there or not, which is true. And I just like didn't really have the strength. And it took me a really long time to actually gain the confidence. And the thing is, like, I did it. Like, I went back a dumb amount of times, spent a ton of money, dumped a bunch of money. I mean, that wasn't my plan. I was like, I'm going to go back, make videos. It's going to be really worth it. Like New York just does better for videos. Like you put NYC in the title, it does better. But it was hard at first. Like I was like, oh, like one of my best friends is going to be there. He already has his place. I'll just join him. And that didn't work out. So I was like, now I'm really out here on my own and I have to figure it out. Like as a single girl, just like going back to this city, but I did it. And like, it was really cool because I just used my own network. Like one of the first places that I stayed at was one of my like USC classmates' places. And he just like happened to post on his Instagram story that he was subleasing his place. I stayed at like some YouTube friends. My next video will explain that I literally, if you watch my last video, Synchronicity in the City, I had a synchronicity to go to Devotion Cafe because another person whose place I was staying at through the USC classmate, he was like his friend, connected me with this guy and he recommended to go to Devotion. Then my intern manager, Ariana, was like, you need to go to this. So it was just the only recommendations I got was like this cafe. And I kept running into people there. Like the first time I was there, I met a viewer. I like saw this journaling classes girl whose journaling class I had taken virtually from Alaska when she was in Brooklyn in like 2020. And then I also ran into this girl named Allison who was in my sorority at like USC. And just a weird sequence of events. She was going on vacation like that next day. And so I ended up being able to stay at her place. And then this whole Like I got fleas basically, and it was just like this whole fleas saga that really just came with a ton of life lessons. Like it's actually really insane to me, and it's kind of hard because there are many layers to the life lessons, like even relationships and like people and other people involved. And I'm really just trying to get to the very surface of like, okay, fleas, where there's like this whole iceberg, but I'm trying to make it make sense to the viewer and show like my life lessons without being like too personal and like getting everyone else or what all the other things that are not super necessary to the story or just like kind of in my own personal life that don't need to be divulged. So it's this like whole freaking saga, and it's really interesting. But basically, I've lost myself. Darn it. I was doing so well, and it was going really well, and I knew that I was coming back around. I literally have a paper here, and you know what? Every single time you have an idea, just write it down because you will lose it. Darn it. Okay, well, really sorry about that. This is gonna be so painful to listen to, and it's also gonna be, but listen, it's more painful for me because I now have the ability as I'm editing this, which I will be in like a few hours, to just go back and be like, you were talking about this, you dumb bee. So that's a thing. But we're gonna move on from that for a second because I do have other things that I want to talk about that I didn't write down, and we're just gonna take like a quick intermission, and then hopefully we'll come back around. Okay, so one thing that has been happening a ton recently, apparently more so, okay, so it's the northern lights and like solar flares and coronal mass ejections have been happening a ton in this last week. Apparently, we've had like the biggest solar flares since September of 2017. And I've said this like many, many times before, and I say it to almost every single person that I meet who I talk about Alaska to, but we are in a new solar cycle for the next like 8 to 10 years, and the northern lights will be out more in the next 2 years than the last 20. And I don't know if they actually genuinely impact people. I feel like they have to because they're literally like energy particles going out into the universe. But I've been having so many people of my friends messaging me or like voice memoing me or just like texting me that they've had the most vivid dreams where they don't usually have these crazy dreams. And I have been having extremely vivid, interesting dreams that cover the entirety of all of my different worlds that I'm a part of. Like yesterday, the crossover was just insane. Like I had some of my roommates, I had Simon and Max in my dream, my two friends from Alaska, Grace and Emma. I had one of my old professors who's Paul Orfala, who actually started Kinko's. He's a billionaire. I don't know if he currently is, but he at one point was a billionaire. And he morphed into Megan Klein, who I podcasted with, who owns the company Little Saints, who morphed into my grandma. So, yeah, and like a few other people from like YouTuber in there, and it was just like the weirdest thing ever. But I would love to know if anyone else is having these insane dreams. But the place that I'm going to, I'm hoping that I will be able to see some northern lights because they've just been going off like crazy. But my theory, and I've been saying this for years, the auroras, like extremely strong auroras, have been known to wipe out like small electronic devices. And from my understanding, they're literally like energy particles like going into these like poles. And so I'm just like, I feel like this kind of has to affect people, right? So I don't know. Not a credible source, but I was just like on Instagram and like something popped up, which was like, if you're experiencing the auroras, you might be extra tired and exhausted, and you might have extremely vivid dreams and all these other random symptoms. But honestly, like I had two people tell me yesterday that they were having crazy vivid dreams. And then they told me their dreams. I had some like crazy vivid dreams, but I've been having them kind of like every day. And it's been really interesting. So, that's just like a little tidbit that I wanted to interject with. I still don't remember what I was talking about, but I had more to say. So I'm just going to move on from that. I feel like this will actually happen a lot in my podcasting. My problem is I love going on tangents, and a lot of the time they eventually can connect. I actually talked about this in my podcast with Catherine, but sometimes I lose them. And since I'm doing a solo podcast, I don't have like someone to catch them. So we're just going to go with it. But I do have more to say. Maybe it'll come back around. So an interesting thing for me is I feel like I've had times in my life where I know exactly what I'm doing. And in my podcast with Simon, I, in hindsight, was like, wow, I kind of sound like a higher than thou, like saying this, whatever. But I was telling him the realization I had, and it wasn't even geared towards him, but I was saying that I think it's really interesting that YouTube is no longer, I said risky, but I didn't mean risky. I meant it's no longer a pathless path. I met a man who wrote this book called The Pathless Path, but I guess he was inspired by some other like writer, but I really like the phrase pathless path, because I honestly feel like that's how I lived like a lot of my path. Like when I started YouTube, like really there was not a pathway to do it. Nowadays, like there's like people know you can make money from it. People know you can like really do well. And, there's a trajectory. It's like you gain a following, you sell merch, like you do sponsorships, like there's like a path paved now. At the time when I was doing it, it was not. So it's really interesting because technically, and I had feedback from other people, like my external, not like my friends and family who were actually supportive, just like kind of haters like in my life that would like backhandedly like give me like a hard time for doing YouTube. Like what are you doing with your time? At that time, looking from the external, like you might think that like I was lost and like didn't know what I was doing. This is a poor example, but it's going back to like the whole idea where I really think like it's actually really crucial and necessary to be lost in order to actually pave your own pathway, because otherwise you're always going to be a part of a crowd. And for a lot of people, that's completely fine. But if you're like an intuitive person who likes to listen to their own voice and inner world and like see that you could like build something that doesn't currently exist in the world, I think there will always be times that you are actually going to be lost and not on an actual path that externally might not look good. But I think if you're actually following your intuition and you have a track record of being right, or like following and having success, like following your intuition, it is inevitable that you're going to be lost. I wrote down, I'm sure this is like a quote. It is very, 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 very cliche or corny. If you're never lost, you can't be found. And again, I don't think it's important for everyone. Like if you're good just following like a traditional path, if you're good just like following a path that was already paved, you might not ever need to be lost. But I have found that I've been lost like a few times in my life, and it's difficult, but I think it's necessary. So one thing that I thought was really interesting was when I was doing my my meeting with this guy, this YouTuber, Attract Passion. The backstory of kind of why I even did this, because I feel like I would actually probably never do this on my own. But I met this person who's a life coach through my parents and her mom. Her mom was a realtor. And basically, my parents were like, they didn't buy a house, but that's how they met her mom. And she's a life coach, and I'm actually kind of attracted to the idea of, at first I didn't know what a life coach was, but just like you have like in university, you have professors that keep you accountable for learning. I was talking to a family friend. I just like sniffled. I was talking to a family friend or a friend. I was talking to someone who plays piano, and that's something that I have been trying to like get back into for years, is just like going to piano lessons, because I have been playing the same freaking songs on my piano for the last 2 years, Canon in D and The River Flows in You. And I have probably played both of those songs like 100 times. And it's partly because like, I could just, print a new song and like learn a new song, but there's also like little accountability. Whereas like if I had a piano teacher and I'm going to piano lessons every week, there's like someone else guiding me and keeping me accountable for progressing. So I kind of think that life coaches and whatnot are kind of the same if you find the right person. At the time, I just didn't have the capacity, but I had been thinking of like doing life coaching with her because I met her and I really liked her. And I even recommended like one of my really good friends from Alaska to do sessions with her, and she did, and she really liked it. So I, at the time though, just didn't have the capacity. I did not have the capacity. Okay, I got it back. But I'll finish this story. Watch me forget like what I'm saying with this. Okay, so I didn't have the capacity. I was just like, I can barely like keep up with like my texts and the stuff that I'm doing right now in my videos. Like, I don't think I'm gonna have the capacity to add this on. Honestly, maybe it would have helped me and kept me more accountable and like put me in a better headspace, but who knows. So I was talking to my best friend, who I had told her about this life coach because they have the same energy. I was like, you guys are kind of the same people, like energetically, just very positive, like always just very like happy and warm. Rachel and K Sky, maybe I'll like link their stuff. I don't think they would mind. But my friend Rachel was like, okay, so, because she tries to keep me accountable in ways like when she notices that I'm struggling, or if she thinks that I'm struggling with something, she'll like send me something or like content, and it's like really sweet. And she was just like, okay, so like, what are you going to do if you're not going to do coaching? And then I was just like, okay, well, I listened to this YouTuber and he mentions how he does like one-on-one coaching calls. And I was just very intrigued by that. And also like, I eventually want to do something with my following, like launch a product or like something. So I'm also interested in like seeing how other people run their things, because a lot of the time when I do something, I'm like, it's like the guilt of like charging money, even though you're actually offering something valuable. So it's like helpful for me to like spend money for other people just to see like what they're kind of doing. So I did a coaching call with him, and it was really interesting because at that time I was still feeling very stuck and stagnant. And he just like, he really recommended like Ed Milet, which was like, I think a great recommendation for me. Like, I've watched some of his videos and I'm just like, wow, that is the exact message that I needed to hear. Like I mentioned, even like the self-sabotaging thing and like cyclical cycles. And he brought up something that was super interesting that I think is fascinating. Obviously, I just said that. But he had me like think about, he was like, okay, think back to your childhood self. And were you always, because I think he was trying to ask me like, am I very like go with the flow, or am I kind of like type A? Because we were getting to the point that I need like more structure and like discipline and like the masculine energy versus like the feminine flowing like being, because you need both. But I was just like going fully like go with the flow, like whatever, like doing whatever I want. And it was interesting because in high school and like grade school, so like at least from middle school to high school, like when I moved to Alaska, I was like the most type A person, I think. And it was not a fun existence. Like, I got straight A's. I was studying all the time. And actually, it was a great existence. I had a great time in high school. I just know that at different points, like in high school, I was so stressed and anxious that I would bite my cuticles. That was just like a sticking out cuticle. I would bite the skin on the side of my fingers just I wouldn't even think about it. Like, I wouldn't be aware that I was doing it. I think out of stress, because I used to bite my nails, but I really stopped. I don't remember at what point that I stopped, because every time I say that, someone asks me who still bites their nails, and I don't know how I actually stopped. It took a little while. And that's kind of the thing with cycles and bad habits, is like sometimes it can be so demoralizing because you feel like you're in them forever. But I genuinely think even if it takes like 7 years, it could take like 10 years. But I feel like every single time you actually make an effort to change it, you are forming neural pathways in your brain, and eventually you will be able to do it. And I think it's really important to like practice this, like even doing like sober months. Like that's why I like doing them, because I remember I tried after college. I was like, I really want to do a sober month, and it actually took me like a few tries, like to get a full month, because it's hard if you're in the middle of like doing something, you're used to doing something. It's so hard to change your habits, especially if you keep yourself in the same environment. It can be almost impossible sometimes, or it can feel that way. But I genuinely think like the more that you try, every single time you try, you're just like kind of like picking at this little ice sculpture, and you can't really see it. You can't see what it is when it's just a big block of ice, but every single little chip that you do, I've never carved an ice structure, but I'm going to Alaska, so I'm excited. I think they're going to have some ice structures there. Every single time you make an attempt, you are forming the sculpture. You're just forming that little next step that you need to actually like accomplish that goal at one point in time. And I genuinely do feel that way. And I've like done, like, it's just true, because I've done that before for like some bad habits. So yeah, I was super anxious in high school, but I did really well. Like I knew exactly where I wanted to go, and I just like worked towards that. And that was also like, that's an example of me not being lost. Like during that time in my life, I knew the exact pathway that I was on, and I worked towards that. I worked super hard, and that was like who I was in high school. And then I think after college, when I started college, I tried to keep that persona, but then I realized, I was kind of like a big fish in a small pond in Anchorage, Alaska. And I got to college and I realized, like, even if I try my absolute hardest, like I'm in the library studying for hours a day, like pulling all-nighters, whatever, I was pushing myself so much to the point that I actually like got sick. But no matter how hard I tried, I would not be the best student. And not only that, like I got C's, I think, my freshman year. I don't know, like it wasn't great. And it was just a crazy realization to be like, wow, this is actually not even possible for me to get like straight A's in this environment. And in a way, it was just a wake up call too. Cause even in high school, like I kind of like conned my way into, I just played the system. Like I look at my report cards, and like I had like 100 absences, and all my teachers like loved me except for my biology teacher. He was like, I would fail you if I could based on how many absences you had. But I just like was good at knowing how to get A's. And in college, I couldn't do that because there are people that were genuinely smarter than me. And I actually wouldn't say that I'm that book smart. I feel like I have like a lot of common sense, and I'm like smart about the things that I am interested in, but it was really hard. So I think it was interesting because there was like a point in time where even in high school, when I was in high school, I was like uncomfortable in my physical body. And I don't think it's only because, like I was like stressed and pushing so hard to be like this perfect student. I think there are definitely other factors at play, like from childhood and whatever. But I was such a stressed person and so disconnected from my body that I think I went the complete opposite way as an adult. Like up until this point, like now I'm very like one of the things, it's hard to like really know your personality until someone reflects it back to you. One of my like best friends, Grace, was just like, the way that I describe you is like, you're just go with the flow. And I kind of feel like that's true. Like, even like going to the airport now, like prior I'd be so stressed, I'd get there super early. But like the last two times I went to the airport, like I'm almost gonna miss the flight, but I'm just like confident that I'll make it and it'll all be fine. And if it's not, then I'll figure it out. But it's usually always fine. But we're not gonna mess around with that this holiday season. So it's been interesting because in that conversation with the Attract Passion guy, Gustav, what's his name? Gaspar. He always says, "Hello, me friends." That's how he introduces his. I should introduce my podcast, like my next podcast, like that, or some more funny, interesting way. But he always says like, "Hello, me friends, and welcome back to my channel." Okay, but he basically had this really interesting thought where he was just like, "Okay, so when you were a child, you were very type A and very, very organized, and now you're, like trying." And it is interesting because like being a creative, I don't know, because I know a lot of creatives who are like, they'll take a look at my desktop and be like, "This is appalling." Actually, like most people, most even creatives, it's always funny too, because it's like the people that you least expect to be the most organized in this creative space, like as YouTubers, are like the most organized. And then meanwhile, like it looks like, I mean, actually, if you watch my Synchronicity video, you can see my desktop. I've organized it. I think that was an organized version, or maybe I have organized it since, but it's kind of like back to that. So I'm in this like interesting place where I feel like I kind of understand both worlds now. And my next step is to merge those two people. And I would say they're not different people, because I honestly think like a younger version of myself knew that eventually I could be the person that I am today. And I honestly really think that like my younger self would be super proud of like who I am. And I think that I am the person that my younger self needed. And yeah, I'm proud of who I am. I think I'm a good person. And I think like over time, again, going back to like the ice sculpture, or like, let's say like it's like porcelain stone or something, or just like a beautiful gem. I think let's go back to the ice. We're going to do ice. I've just like uncovered the version of who I am over time. And it takes like a lot of effort and commitment and time and like hard work, but I think more and more I'm uncovering like who I truly am inside, and like my inner worlds and outer worlds are becoming like more fluid, instead of just like, oh, very, very separate. Like I used to just be very in my head and like very outside of my body. And a lot of things have helped. I talk about this like all the time, but yoga was instrumental in that, in bridging like a big gap. Journaling has been life-changing. Both of those two things, like I think are insane, have been life-changing. And that's also the interesting thing, and exercise. But it's interesting, like, even because it was so frustrating to me at the time, because I was aware of it, but I didn't at the time know how to change it. And I knew it could take years. I just knew it, because I knew the internal state of my mind and how disconnected I was from my body. And I was like, I think this will take years. And even like looking back to photos, like you can tell I'm just like uncomfortable in my body, even in videos. Like that's the kind of beautiful thing about my channel, is like you could see me kind of grow up. I look uncomfortable. Like I physically look uncomfortable in my own body. And yeah, so I thought that was like a really, really interesting contrast or thought or thing to bring up that he had for me, or he had me look back on and analyze, is just like bridging the gap between those two people. And again, I think that's what I feel like this is like a little loop that I'm going in. Not different people, because I was aware, but I feel like I'm in like it is like kind of a different person in a way. It was like two separate existences of reality, experiencing reality very differently than I am now. Like it's really cool because I love being active, and before I just didn't feel comfortable enough in my body. Even at the time, I remember my mom just being like, I know that you would be a great athlete, but I think there was just some weird disconnect, trauma. But yeah, it's like, it's really cool existing now because I'm so much more comfortable in my body. Like my posture is better. Like I can do, like, snowboarding was like a traumatic experience for me. Like I even recently went in like 2020, and for the first time in like years, and it just like sent me back into like my childhood body where I was so uncomfortable and insecure. And it was so interesting, like even overcoming that, because I just like, I love like snowboarding now, I love like paddleboarding, whatever, doing like all these balance things like yoga, where that to me was just like an aspirational goal of even being comfortable doing any of those things. So that's really cool. And again, I think like my adult years of like discovering that person, there's no like linear path for that. So you really have to explore and like figure things out and go out of your comfort zone and go out of your way. And again, it kind of goes back to like the whole you are lost thing. It's like there's no set path to figuring that out. Actually, the set path probably would have been like going to therapy, getting like anxiety medication and figuring it out in the pharmaceutical world. And it's crazy looking back. And I'm not discounting those things. But also in some ways, like maybe I am, because like even experiencing that in my family, like it's interesting now because those things are so common and talked about now. But I remember growing up when, you know, like I was my family was having those experiences. Like no one knew what like OCD or like Tourette's or anything was. And at least for the people that I know in my life, like medication kind of only made that worse. And again, I don't want to like discount people's experiences, but it's taken me like actually 10 years to get over like mass anxiety to the point where I would bite my cuticles. That's what I was saying too. That I would bite my cuticles and I thought they were warts, but it was literally from me just continuously biting my cuticles. It was like kind of a form of like self-mutilation. That sounds like really disgusting, but I wasn't even aware that they were not warts because they were just like mounds on the side of my fingers. But it was just from me biting that skin and then not letting it heal. So then I would bite it again and there would just be like a mound of whatever irritation. And they didn't go away until like school was over. And I was like, oh, these are not warts. These are actually just from me biting myself when I was like stressed. So that I think somehow eventually went full circle. So I hope I closed that loop. But okay, no, I didn't actually close that loop yet. The whole thing, going back to that, is when I was in New York at the time. If you're listening to this at this point, please comment, close the loop, because this is pretty funny. But if you're still here, I appreciate you a lot. Okay, so I think this year was like a year of like kind of just being at the same place, but I think there was also some small forms of self-sabotage, but also maybe they're not self-sabotage. Maybe that's just like really what I needed, and I needed to like grow and nurture myself in order to move to the next thing that I want to do in life. But I also think it was, I don't think because I literally journaled it and I kind of know like deep down, there was an avoidance of responsibility, because at the time it was really important for me to go back to New York just to show that I could do it myself and prove it to myself and just do that on my own. And I felt like my time was like cut short there. So I was just like, I was really just doing it for me. And I don't regret like a single thing, like even though my bank account does, but I don't, because I feel like that helped me do whatever I needed to do in my own brain for me to move on from that experience. But I remember also reading a journal entry from like the year prior. And I think I was just like, I don't exactly remember because I read it like a little while ago this summer, but it was just like kind of like, I think I know what I need to do in order to like get to the next level, even for like YouTube, and the responsibility that would take. And I just was not ready for that. And it's nice because the end of the year, my birthday is on the 5th of January. So the new year is also like a new year of life for me. I said that weird, but it's like, it's a very reflective time for me. Like I really love New Year's just for the symbolism, and I always have. And it's also just interesting because it's like I'm a new age, and I am going to be 28, and I read The Defining Decade in my early 20s, at least like in 2019 or something. And I actually really recommend it. I can't really tell you exactly what's in the book, because I read it so long ago, but I remember it was a good book to read. And basically she talks about like the breakdown of like actual biology and how as women, when you turn 30, you know, your fertility starts to decline. So if you want kids or if you're thinking about it, that's just something that you genuinely just have to keep in mind. And I think it's interesting because I think like okay, we're not going to get into that, but I think like, no, we're just going to stay on track. Okay. No more tangents that go crazy because we don't have time for that. But basically I'm just like, you know, I don't even currently have a boyfriend, but if I want to stay on track for that timeline, if I'm thinking of that, honestly, I feel like right now is like kind of a scary time to even be thinking about having kids, but I've always wanted kids. And so I'm keeping that timeline in mind. And I'm just like, I really have like the next 2 years completely to myself. Like I've had the last like few years completely to myself, just to be like, I think everyone needs like a time to be selfish in their life, to like work on them and like do the thing that they want to do before like having a family. At least that's like my path, and that's like what I think is important. And so I don't know, I'm just like, okay, these next like years, it's like a shortening amount of time, which is like kind of scary to think about, but also like motivating. I think, you know, it's like important, I'm learning to have like deadlines to things so that you actually like progress, because if you just have endless time to do everything, you don't have an incentive to like move forward on things. So that's been like an interesting thing where, and I also just feel like this like last year and a half has just been me kind of like, you know, no, you don't know because I barely know, but just like building myself up, building my confidence up, building my skills up, and just learning all the things that I need to kind of learn in order to like move to the next level. And I actually really genuinely feel like I'm ready to do that. And like also I feel like I really actually subconsciously know how much responsibility and how much sacrifice that'll kind of take of free time, but also just having like endless free time and freedom is like kind of a paradox in itself. Like that's actually, I will never say that that's not a good thing, but there is kind of like a trap to just having like endless free time and no responsibility. I think that is actually, it's not necessarily like a good thing. I think it's important to have like responsibility, and that's something that I think I either didn't have the capacity to take on or was kind of like avoiding in some way, or maybe, you know, I was like kind of self-sabotaging in order to stay in my comfort zone. So those are kind of like my thoughts as of recently. And it was really interesting reading that letter or my journal entry of just being like very self-aware of like, I don't think I want this responsibility right now, but I feel like I'm at a place right now where I do want that responsibility, or I just can take that on, and I know that I can. And yeah, I know that it's kind of like the cost or like the give and take that I'll have to make, but I am ready. Okay. It is now 3:19, and I think I'm gonna head to the airport in like 2 hours. So kind of things, all of that to say is I'm kind of in that phase of like, I don't really know what I'm gonna be doing here in the next month. So basically, I've kind of just been like living off of money that I made when I was in the content house. That was like the most I've made in a year. Comparatively, it wasn't that much, but for me, it was a lot. And that has been dwindling. And I'm not worried about it because I don't know, I don't really even like having this discussion, but it's interesting because like I have like even in that regard, like I have like all of these contacts and like brands that I've worked with in the past. There are 2 videos that I'm working on that I know will not be sponsored just because they, to me, are just like so, it's like a personal diary, or it's like a public diary entry. Basically, it's just like me trying to convey learnings in order to solidify it in my own brain and like process that moment and finally like move on from it. So I know that my next two videos like are not going to be sponsored. And so I think after that I could like reach out to sponsors and like actually make money again. My actual goal is to like not eventually have to work with sponsors, because that kind of, I don't know. I did a video called I'm like 27, I still live with my parents, and that dives really deep into like why and how I feel about sponsors. And I actually did a video like in 2018 probably about like, I think it's called like what influencers don't tell you, and or the truth about something, where I know that I dive into that topic. Eventually I would love to have like my own things and products or services that I'm like super proud of, and don't have to do sponsors or as many unless they're super, super aligned. But right now, I don't really, especially after the holidays and like just flights and stuff, I don't really even have the money to be living in Austin at the place that I'm at. Granted, I only planned on being here for like 3 months, and my other roommates like decided to extend, and I've just been like, I mean, I've been very happy here. So December was like the first month that was like outside of the planned budgeting, and then January. So I think I'll probably be leaving here either January or mid-January, because right now my budget, that's all I can really like afford in my bank account right now. And so this is like kind of another little area where I kind of just like had the realization and was like, okay, I think my time here is like kind of done in this space. And also like just that the money like aligns with it, the money issue. So it's like another little time where I'm just like, I don't really know what I'm going to be doing. Like I don't know. I think I'm going to try to be in Austin and maybe do like just shorter term rentals, not like commit to like a whole year and all of that. But again, like another just like area or point in time where I'm like, I'm pretty lost on like what I'm going to be doing, but I have full trust and faith in myself and in the universe and in God, whatever, that I can make it work. And it's interesting because I've been at these points in life where I'm like I don't know what I'm going to be doing. And it's like something that I stress about. But I've truly just learned, I think, over these last few years, to just have faith and like trust in myself and to surrender. So yeah, that's kind of my plan. Is I'm going for Christmas. I will be back, and I'm actually really excited. I'm going to be hosting my friend Kelly Stamps, and I also am still so interested in the idea of trying to do group content, and I've been so stuck on my like last videos. It just doesn't make sense, like really, except for me and my brain, where I'm not moving on from making content until I kind of finish these videos, and the energy has like waxed and waned. But I'm pretty confident that like I'm gonna be able to finish them, and I'm trying to do it by the new year. I know that at least, let's just say I'm gonna be finishing all my old videos by this year, so then I can move on from that. And again, I'm like very interested in the idea of group content, and I feel like I have like so many different creator friends who have actually expressed interest in it too. And so I really want to play around with that in the new year, and especially like before I leave, because like even my roommates are like, yeah, we're down, like just tell us what to do. And then I've met more people in Austin, more creators in Austin, who also kind of seem like they're down or like very interested in the idea. And also like even people moving back home to Austin who are like from Austin. So that's been really cool. And that is definitely something I need to do before I leave, because I've been talking about it to like everyone here, and everyone is pretty much on board. It's just like kind of a matter of like executing. So before I leave, I definitely want to do that. And I ideally would like to return, like, and just figure that out. but we're going to see how that works and what happens with that. And if I can figure that out and, that situation. But we'll cross that bridge a little bit. I'm just kind of taking it one step at a time, one video at a time. And yeah, I, again, don't really know. Like, I can't really tell you what I'll even be doing past mid-January, but that's okay. And again, I trust myself. So yeah. Okay. So those are kind of all of my updates and like what's next for me. And I wanted to end this. I actually wanted to begin it, but I think I just completely glossed over it. But in my last podcast with Simon Kim, excuse me, I kind of have like a burp in my... I also was listening to Sophia with an F, and she talked about how she had like a vocal trainer or something because she has like vocal fry. And she was like, my vocal therapist, I don't know what it's called, would really appreciate me drinking water in between talking, like every 20 minutes. So drink your water. That was actually tea, but I have my water right here. Okay, so I was very kindly gifted a deck of Alpaca tarot cards. So if you didn't listen to my last podcast, basically I talked about how I don't really accept PR. Like, I don't like accepting PR because a lot of it's like kind of junk, and I don't know. I just don't like having a bunch of stuff. Some YouTubers literally only do YouTube to get free stuff. And don't get me wrong, like, I will take stuff, and like I have plenty of people that would love the stuff, and I've given it away to people and like strangers and like whatever. But for the most part, like, I move around a lot. I'm kind of like nomadic, or at least I was until I got to Austin for like the last 3 months. Can't believe I've been here. This might be the 4th month. So just try to minimize the amount of junk and waste and whatever. But I accepted 2 things. One was the La Roche-Posay. I need a post of that on Instagram because I even see, like, the more I learn about it, like, the better the product it is. Like, I even saw on Twitter that it like decreases like dark spots. So it works on like all skin types and tones. And my sister, I sent it to her one time just because I was moving around, and she said she had bumps on her face and they actually went away. So I need to post that on Instagram. But I also what else did I accept? I don't even remember. But basically I was talking about that, and Quinn, who created these cards, was like, oh, I think Amory would be the perfect person to send these little tarot cards to. So I'm honored, and I've actually been having like so much fun with these. So I thought I would do a little reading, maybe for the both of us listening to this right now and me talking. Probably should have thought of like, I don't actually know how to do these that well, but I just draw a card and kind of like, I don't draw a card, but I shuffle them, and like whatever comes out, I think of a topic first and I'll write it down. So like I did one before this reading, and usually like I do it in like a way that has like some type of direction. Like I was literally debating redoing my entire synchronicity video. I kind of went down that little spiral. I was like, I had so much more to say. Like I had so many more synchronicities. Like, should I redo it? And I was just like, I'm gonna draw a card on it. And it basically was just like, time to let go of the past. And I was just like, okay, yeah, I didn't actually really want to do it. So first of all, like, I don't think that these are, I think some people think this is like dark energy. I don't really know if people think that, but I really just think it's a way to put on different hats, like to imagine different scenarios. And I even think that it's a way to like actually see your deeper intuitions. It's like if you have a question and you pull a card, or you get dealt a card or whatever, it's like, oh, what would you actually think or want, if that makes sense. I have a more articulate way of explaining that to come, but I've thought of that a lot, and I think it's like actually a useful tool. So I'm going to put my microphone kind of here. I need to get like one of those arm things that just holds it so you can have hands free. So let's see. Let's think of a topic. If you're listening to this right now, you can like this video to put your energy into this little reading. But okay, let's just do for the holidays. So I like to just like write it down. I do like holidays, and this is not like a directed thing. It's like a very general, vague thing, but maybe that's better because we don't really have collectively between you listening. Also, if you're not watching on YouTube, this is just like the most beautiful deck of cards, and I was flattered because she said that she would like her kid showed her Your Mom's House content, and she was just like very inspired by us all making our different videos. And I'm genuinely so impressed with people who make physical products, because I feel like that is the ultimate like thing of having something in your brain come to life. That's something I've never done before as a physical product, and something that I really want to do. So I'm just endlessly impressed with like people who have actually made that happen, because it also seems like a ton of work, and I'm impressed. So, but I like, even like the sides of the cards are just so beautiful. It's like rainbow. It's so pretty, and it comes in this little box, and she is giving you all, this is an exclusive Unemployed Millennial podcast deal, but if you use the code Amory20, you can get 20% off your Alpaca tarot deck. And this is not an affiliate link. I just genuinely want to support an independent female Asian businesswoman. So if you're looking for a deck of cards, this would be a perfect gift too. Again, like in my last video, I said that I didn't want to buy myself a tarot deck. I kind of felt like it would just come, one would find me, and I was right. Okay. What do we have? I don't know. Maybe I'll do 3 cards. This one is in reverse. So that was the Knight of Cups reversed for the holidays. This is how I do it. I just like kind of shuffle until like one of them pops out. My favorite card, the Tower, but it was reversed. So maybe that's a good sign. Again, I love, okay, well, I don't know if that counts. 2 cards came out. Sure. Okay, the Moon and 6 of Pentacles. All right. It was pretty crazy. I remember I was, our holiday situation is kind of split this year. It's always been like kind of weird in adulthood, but I had the option to go to 2 different places, and then I just did Alaska ? And I got some crazy like good cards, and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna go and be happy in Alaska, which I was happy to go to. I'm so grateful. So the Knight of Cups in reverse, and she has this little booklet. Knight of Cups in reverse. All right. So in reverse, you experience a scattering of emotions, and you find it hard to organize your thoughts. Overthinking may stifle your creativity. Surrender your thoughts and let your instincts guide you to your path. I mean, it's pretty relevant to like everything that I've been saying in terms of my own creativity. And I fully plan on, I have like the bones of my next video done. I've basically just done like a rough cut. And it was so confusing because for this video, I just had so much footage from different cameras because I was unorganized in how I filmed it. And it was just, I didn't even want to touch it with like a 10-foot pole. And I even almost had Abrion, my editor. She like actually did try to edit it, but it was just like way too confusing. So if you're listening to this, Abrion, I'm very sorry. But I finally like have started actually editing it. So that will probably be relevant to me at least. So the Tower upside down. I've talked about how the Tower was my favorite card in like one of my podcast episodes like last year. And I just love the symbolism of the Tower. Basically, It's like a big tower and there's always a lightning bolt and people like falling out of the tower. Essentially, my understanding of the tower card upright is like people are living above in a tower and they're not living in reality. So you need like this energy and this lightning bolt to strike and bring everyone back down to reality. And I feel like I've gone through like a few tower moments in the last year, some much bigger than others. But yeah, I would say one of the biggest ones was me leaving your mom's house. I feel like that was a huge tower moment for me. Like just, yeah, interesting. And I also have found like a lot of symbolism in lightning ever since I watched Avatar, The Last Airbender. And also I've been experiencing like a lot of lightning, like crazy lightning. This will be in one of the videos too. Crazy lightning when I was leaving New York, like the day I was leaving, it literally, I woke up to a huge lightning flash. It seemed like someone literally just took a flash photo, like flash picture in my face, but it was insane lightning. So yeah. And then the first weekend that I got here, there was like an insane lightning storm here. And I really like watching lightning because we just don't really have that in Anchorage or in Alaska. It's much more common, I guess, like on the East Coast. I don't know. Okay. So the tower in reverse. In reverse, sometimes we hold on to what's familiar because it's comfortable, but it can drain our energy. Faced with change, we sometimes unknowingly create obstacles to protect ourselves. Confront any insecurities directly and head on. Welcome to this new chapter. This is exactly what I've been talking about this entire time. Okay, that's pretty crazy. I like that one. Okay, the moon card. Regrettably, you can't really see this even on YouTube because of the lighting, but these are really, really, really cute cards. The moon card. Okay. The moon is a ball of intuition and illusion in the night sky. Things aren't always what they seem, so trust your instincts and look within. The moon can reveal hidden truths or create illusions. Before your next adventure, listen to your inner voice and trust your intuition. It will guide you through the darkness. That's a pretty good one. For me, at least. Leave me any feedback to see if this is relevant for you in like the holidays. So like right now it's the 19th. I'm going to say like throughout the rest of the month. Well, actually, I'm going to be posting another podcast. So for the next week, the 19th through like the 29 plus 7 through the 20. Let's just do the 25th. So like until Christmas. So let me know if this is relevant, please. Okay. 6 of Pentacles. This is like the coin looking thing. It's kind of funny because a lot of people can't actually read like Roman numerals. So it's kind of like interesting when you're doing like a tarot reading and they're like, I mean, is that mean? Well, you can learn if you get a tarot deck, I guess. 6 of Pentacles. I remember teaching myself like, because I was very confused, like reading books and like not the epilogue, the prologue would always be in Roman numerals. So I was like, I need to learn what this means because I don't actually know what it means. So I learned, but it's pretty easy if you don't. 6 of Pentacles. The 6 of Pentacles reminds you to share your blessings with others. There are many creative ways you can help others with your time, kindness, or talents. Find a healthy balance between giving and receiving. By being generous and helping others, you have the power to create a more positive world. All right. Hopefully that's relevant to someone. I also kind of think that tarot is just like kind of positive affirmations. But again, like just an interesting way to like think of your life in different lenses. I don't think it's like witchcraft or anything. I don't know why I'm justifying or like defending tarot cards like so hard. It's kind of just like a fun freaking little alpaca thing. But I don't know. Let me know your thoughts. All right. Maybe I'll do like a little reading towards the end of my podcasts. I'm not sure about everyone, but maybe if you guys like it. So definitely leave me feedback if you did. Also, if you didn't, I guess, let me know. And thank you so much for listening. If you made it this far, again, comment close the loop. Or maybe, yeah, close the loop. Because I need to kind of do a good job at that. Because I feel as a podcaster, you can't just keep a loop open. Yeah, my friend James, so he is the Korean NPC like on TikTok and Instagram, and he was like, yeah, I was listening to your first podcast and I like loved it, but he said that I didn't finish my create, curate, capture idea. He was like, yeah, you never touched on the last one, so that's kind of why I did it in this one. But I could see where it'd be very frustrating to not close the loop, so that's a good reminder. So comment close the loop and your favorite emoji, and thank you for all those people who have commented when I've asked you to, because it's just fun to see the interaction. And also, but if you have any other thoughts, I feel like this is honestly a really good place for discussion and just like reading comments, because we have a really interesting demographic, as I've covered in one of my podcast episodes. So again, thank you so much for watching. I'm going to get ready to catch my flight. I'm going to finish packing up a little bit. I'm pretty much done. I might just straight pull an all-nighter. Like, I don't even know if I'm going to nap. All right. So leave a thumbs up for all-nighters. And happy holidays, everyone.